Take two.
I'm back.
Okay. We need to tread very carefully here.
Don't say anything wrong.
Don't say anything wrong. Don't say anything bad about Restream or Facebook. Hi, good evening, and welcome to Momentous Live, episode 86. I'm Tristan Jutra.
And I'm Tasia Custody.
And today we learned that when Restream tells you that you need to update your Facebook settings soon, it means you got to do it now before you go live, even though it doesn't really say that in the error message. So you got to fumble around for a few minutes and make your stream go late.
Better 10 minutes late than never.
I suppose. If only Elon could buy Facebook and or Restream and just fix everything. Get Elon to buy all the things.
I think that would do the trick.
The best thing about starting late is that anyone who may have tuned in live is just links don't work. So you know what we're gonna do? we got to share these links again real fast. Can we do this live? Would this be good TV?
I mean, I think it's great audio too.
Great
just
audio.
People I can just say I'm tweeting the link right now. Look at me go.
You could narrate it exactly what you're doing. It could be like a David Attenborough, like a Blue Planet sort of deal.
I wish I had his voice. I mean, in the female form. It'd be weird if I had his voice.
Exactly. Observe as the desperate Restream user attempts to reconnect its streams to the various social platforms, and then rescue or salvage any form of an audience for its live stream, and then relaunch one of its browsers and get a spinning beach ball on its poor little laptop computer that is managing said stream. Because user, a little bit of
So the next question would be if you can hear me at all or not, because you're breaking up on my end.
Can. Even better. Okay. That was probably because I was launching Facebook.
So hopefully,
and it was probably trying to open a million tabs in the background.
Yeah, hopefully that sounded as great to everybody else. That's right.
Okay. You ready to do this for real?
We're going to get it together. Maybe.
Okay, I'm going to finally quit Safari. And hey, you know what we should do? Just for fun?
Figure things out before. Oh, hello. Welcome to Momentous Live, episode 86. Take 3. I'm Tasia Custody.
And I'm Tristan Jutra. I cannot accept any responsibility for this dumpster fire. Okay, let's go. It's the curse of Elon. Speaking of Elon, let's jump into it, shall we? He's had a busy week, and for more reasons than you may think. For one, he has to share the correct window in his web browser so that he can take a look at something and share with the audience. But SpaceX's massive Falcon Heavy rocket launches for the first time in 3 years on a classified mission for the U.S. Space Force. So in addition to some of the public missions that we know about for science and research and all those good things, sometimes there are classified missions run by all sorts of governments around the world doing things in space that they aren't so forthcoming with details about. But one of the highlights of said mission was the landing of the Falcon Heavy's 2 side booster rockets. And looks pretty amazing when they landed within visible range of each other. And then, of course, if you are following the stream live, you could see them both landing. And that's a pretty impressive feat when it's just a few years ago, there were one explosion after another with rocket launches and rocket landings, flubbing landings, then eventually starting to nail or stick the landings. And I don't know, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool thing to behold. So we got some photos online where you can see the two rockets, and they're just landing on pads in the middle of the ocean. And in this case, I don't think these ones were in the ocean this time, were they? It looks like it's in the desert this time. Often they'll land in the middle of the ocean. But anyway, first time since 2018. How excited are you, Tasia?
Yeah, well, there was a cool, everybody could see like a rocket launch from here. So like, I was just going to say, I think it was across the desert because people were going crazy, like through parts of California and here, like, what is that in the sky? It's like, it's just a casual launch. No big deal.
Luckily he doesn't have to like do the control the rockets himself, being Elon. That is, got great teams at SpaceX and other companies, Boring Company and Hyperloop and Neuralink, and of course Tesla. But because Elon's going to Elon, the months-long saga that we've been talking about on and off, sounds like it's finally coming to an end. And I think we hinted at it last week that it looked like it was getting close, and finally happened. Elon Musk is now the heavily leveraged owner of Twitter. Twitter is no longer a public company. It's going private. And one of the first things Elon did is fired 4 senior executives, including Parag Agrawal, who was the head of engineering previously. He also fired, so he was CEO. He fired CFO Ned Siegel, general counsel Sean Edgett, and head of legal policy, trust, and safety Vijaya Gadde. So bye-bye, senior execs. And of course, he's going to install his own people in there, mainly, I guess, to support his claim that the company was not well run. So get his own team in. And from what I understand, over the weekend, there was a bit of a meeting with a star chamber of trusted advisors, people like Jason Calacanis, who has a couple of, he's a former journalist, a Silicon Valley journalist, ran Silicon Valley Insider, and started Weblogs Inc., I believe, a suite of blogs in the mid 2000s, and more recently is the host or co-host of a few different podcasts like This Week in Startups and the All In podcast, and runs a big angel fund syndicate as well. Apparently is reasonably tight with Elon. Had gone with Elon to New York City when Elon hosted Saturday Night Live in the springtime. So apparently this was one of the fellows that was in meetings over the weekend. And so was David Sachs, who Elon Musk knew from his days back at PayPal. He's part of the PayPal mafia. So lots of planning going on, lots of spitballing of ideas. And, this is the beginning of the next chapter of Twitter. Of course, there's been lots of hot takes already, including one from the editor-in-chief of The Verge, Nilay Patel, basically saying, welcome to hell, Elon. Basically saying, be careful what you wish for, because Twitter's been a bit of a dumpster fire for a long time. And as much as Elon claims to be a free speech absolutist, that's not going to go so well, because he also said more recently he does not want Twitter to end up being like I can't remember his, what was the exact words? It was kind of like along the lines of a hell stew or something like that. Someone had referred to Twitter as a toxic hell stew. He basically paraphrased that. He crowned himself chief twit of Twitter, and in the paperwork, he's actually CEO until they find a new CEO, of course. But now he's updated his Twitter profile from chief twit to the title of this episode, which is Twitter Complaint Hotline Operator. So before we dig into some of the individual aspects of what's happened in the last few days, Tasia, I just want to ask you, how relieved are you that we finally have turned the page on this will they or won't they saga, and now the real work begins?
Well, I was just going to say, I think this is the story just beginning. Like we cracked the book, and like we just finished chapter 1.
Or
You know
maybe
what I
the
mean? And
prologue.
now it's like exactly, the
Yeah.
prologue, and now we begin. Because so far, I feel like at least once a day, if not a couple times a day, he's changing his mind on this or that, or saying this, or then going back on that, and it's almost like just watching. I mean, I guess this is what Twitter is, just watching, verbal diarrhea, real life musings as they happen, perhaps.
It's
So
almost
it's going to be very
it's
interesting.
like it's like a an accelerated version of Google's messaging app strategy over the years,
Right, pretty
which we'll
much.
talk about later.
I'll let you take that. I'll take that burn.
So one of the ideas that has been kicked around, or that Elon was talking about, publicly musing about making Twitter Blue the way that you get verified. You get your blue check mark on Twitter, and Twitter Blue up till now has been $4.99 a month. And he was saying, "Oh, well, yeah, we'll make it $20 a month, and you'll get all sorts of benefits." And then, of course, people like Stephen King and others sort of publicly uh, balked at that, and saying $20 a month to keep my blue check. F that. They should pay me. If that gets instituted, I'm gone like Enron. Okay, nice timely reference there,
Sick,
Stephen
sick
King.
burn.
Enron, eh? Ooh, that's the kids are really going to get that. With a 20-year-old,
Oh,
come on,
God.
20-year-old reference. And then Elon replies, "We need to pay the bill somehow. Twitter cannot rely entirely on advertisers. How about $8?" So people are like, "Oh, he's like, begging Stephen King to stand." That's not exactly it. There's something known as
No.
trial balloons, and that whole $20 was probably a trial balloon. But so in a
But
slightly
he's
more,
just throwing
yeah,
ideas,
exactly,
see if they stick. Oh, you don't like that? Let's cut it in less than half. How about $8? Like,
exactly,
it's
yeah.
just like, wait, what?
And the one of the angles that he has for this whole um, verified status is kind of opening it up a little bit more. And he said basically Twitter's current lords and peasants system for who or who doesn't have a blue check mark is BS. Power to the people. Blue, Twitter, as in Twitter Blue, for $8 a month, and then price adjusted by country proportionate to purchasing power parity. I think that's an interesting point. So it's because $8 a month US is a lot more money for some people, especially in the developing world, than it is
Mhm.
for your average folks in the US. Uh, and basically, you would get priority as part of this $8 a month. Not only can you get verified and get that blue check mark, as opposed to people just like being so thirsty for this and trying to figure out ways to get this, and having this dual
Mhm.
class of Twitter citizenship, which is kind of strange in a way, because in my mind, the verified like status should basically mean you are who you say you are, as opposed to
Agreed.
being like some important person. But
Yeah.
so additional benefits include priority in replies, mentions, and search, which Elon argues is essential to defeat spam and scams. The ability to post long video and audio, half as many ads. So this one's a little gnarly, because for $4.99 for Twitter Blue, you could get no ads, and now for $8 a month, you can get half as many ads. So they're trying to
Yeah.
thread the needle. Maybe they were looking at the numbers for Twitter Blue, and it just wasn't adding up, the amount of the advertising revenue that they were losing versus the subscription revenue they were getting. Now, because he's been saying like one of the keys to make Twitter more ultimately a better value proposition is to start building subscription revenue, charging for features that power Twitter users value, while still making it free for those who may not have the budget for it. And paywall bypass for publishers willing to work with us. So again, that kind of it ties into the whole advertising thing. So if you have, say, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, the New York Times, the other potential publishers, they connect in with Twitter, and for Twitter verified users, Twitter Blue users who are paying the $8 a month, they could get access maybe to a certain number of articles from said publications as part of that, and maybe there would be some sort of rev share. Again, maybe with some advertising in there, maybe some, who knows? I think that's working out. Now, the larger picture for what Elon is looking to do with Twitter Blue, and we don't really have this in here, is that he's again spoken publicly about making Twitter into a super app, a la WeChat in China, which is not just a social networking platform, messaging service, but it also has a payment service. You can book car rides, like ride hailing, all sorts of things like reservations, everything in one. So one idea is to make Twitter into the super app, or use it as a launching pad, maybe an extended version of Twitter being the super app. And the name for which, do you remember what the name is that he still owns the .com for? X.com was Elon's financial payment company that merged with PayPal back in the early 2000s. And that's how he became a quote unquote co-founder of PayPal, X.com. And he still owns X.com, the domain name. So X is the super app that he's also dreaming of here, of using Twitter infrastructure to launch this. So we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of engineering challenges. There's been talk about potentially laying off up to 75% of the workforce. And then that's been kind of walked back a little bit. For Twitter's revenue, they seem to be highly overstaffed. So we'll see where this actually ends up. Some people could be redeployed. But anyway, his team is going to get in there, figure out what they can do, who they can redeploy, who they should let go. Of course, he's playing games too, like those 4 executives we talked about who are fired right away. He's trying to fire them with cause, so he doesn't have to pay out their millions of dollars of severance. Like Parag Agrawal is owed like $43 million, which isn't bad for working for like a year as CEO. But if you claim, he did a crappy job, and they can be fired for cause, and it's just like, oh my God, just why drag this out? Just like make a clean break and move on. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like
I feel like it's important to I want to go over each of these things he's claiming right now, so we can discuss this. So the first thing being the verification thing. People are absolutely losing it. Of all the things he has pitched in this $8 a month, people are outraged over the verification thing, because now he has not confirmed this part, by the way, but kind of what Stephen King was saying is so retroactively, those that are already verified are going to lose, theoretically, the verification unless they pay the $8 a month. It's not like you're grandfathered in. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Now, he hasn't confirmed that, but that's a thing. But beyond that, because for the majority of us, we aren't verified, this verification thing has been going on for years on Twitter. In the sense that, I don't know if you remember, but a couple years ago, they had made the announcement that they were going to open it up to not just famous people, but anybody could apply, and exactly what you're saying, to prove it is me on there. I want to prove this is the Tasia Custodi. So here is my ID. This is me. And then you get that check mark. So people know they're following the actual person that, and not like a replica account, a bot account. That sat dormant. There was a website you could go to, and it's literally been dormant since that announcement. They just couldn't get it together, or maybe we're figuring out if they should push the button on monetizing it and didn't do it. And so it's been sitting like that. The reason people are freaking out now is because they're feeling like, what good is it is just to say, oh, I have this stamp of, this gold stamp, I pay $8 a month, so now I am verified, but it doesn't actually mean anything, because what's the process for verification? So what's to say, I couldn't start a random account under a random handle and just pay $8 and get it verified? So I'm really curious to see, honestly, in that sense, what their actual verification is for it. Because if you're calling it a verification checkmark, which is what it was, I hope you're verifying people, because there's a lot of people, not even just big celebrities, a lot of people in social media space or tech space, people make fake accounts of them and try to scam people. So it's a very interesting thing to me to see his play there. I don't really understand his argument in terms of, oh, the lords and the peasants. And it's kind of well, you could have just opened it up to what Twitter was going to do in the first place and allow people to verify themselves. regardless of follower count, regardless of job, verify themselves. And maybe you make a flat fee and say, if you want to verify yourself, here's the rules. You have to be who you want to be, and it costs you whatever. It's a one-time fee of whatever. Guarantee you're going to get a lot more people doing that, because from what I've been seeing on Twitter, most people who were Twitter Blue members have now canceled. So now he's lost that $4.99 a month or whatever it was. So that's the first thing, which I find weird. The other thing I find weird in his little list of what he said he's going to do is the whole like priority status thing, which sounds really cool to have like priority and replies, right? And mentions and search. But he's saying the reasoning is because it will cut down on spam, I guess, is what he's saying. I don't understand how that equates to defeating spam and scam, because again, if I'm a bot account or a spam account and I'm paying the $8, I'm going to come up priority. So I could be pushing misinformation. I could be pushing spam account, right? So maybe he's thinking there's something behind the scenes that's verifying all this. Not really sure. The whole thing with posting long video and audio, we say this all the time. You don't have to be all things to all people. So that's really interesting to me and makes me think maybe you're onto something with the whole X thing, because why is my question for that. When, I know we'll talk about it in a minute, he's also made comments about wanting the team to bring back a certain short form video content, which is very interesting. So it's like, pick a lane, you know, and then the whole half as many ad things. How can a user verify that? Like, if you and I sign up for Twitter Blue at $8 a month, how can you and I verify we're seeing the same amount of ads? You know what I mean? Like, that could just be a made up thing and you're still feeding a bunch of ads, you know? Or like, if one of us is signed up and the other one isn't, how do we know that I'm getting what I've paid for with that? So I just have a lot of questions with this. I think $8 a month is steep. You know, I'm cheap and I'll never pay for that ever. Like, I wouldn't even pay for the $4.99. Like, it's ridiculous. So like, I just think it's really steep, and I don't know that you get enough out of it. Like, you're starting to creep up into like streaming platform type of rates here. Mm-hmm. And you know, I don't even like paying those rates. And I get a lot of different programming. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like, I'm not sure really what the end goal is here for him. So I think he's throwing a bunch of stuff to the wall and seeing what sticks. And this will probably change by the time we talk next week. It could be a whole different list.
I think part of the rationale here is that especially out of the gate, the sort of people or entities that get a lot of value out of being verified and it being confirmed they are who they say they are. For those sorts of folks and organizations, $8 a month US is trivial because it's mostly journalists, politicians, celebrities, athletes, et cetera, et cetera. This is pocket change. But then some of them are the loudest like critics. Part of it is because they've been getting so much for free. They built their platform and had reach for free, or some of them have been paying $4.99 for Twitter Blue, and I think Gray had been paying that, and I think he said it was worthwhile. Maybe for the no ads thing, even with half the ads, it's probably nowhere near as many of the ads as much the ad load we're seeing on Instagram, which is crazy making. So it's a question of like, will they continue to add value for this $8 a month? I think in a perfect world, it's not that you're just paying that $8 a month and you get that blue check. It's like you're paying the $8 a month, but you're going through the verification process. And to my mind, even if people have been grandfathered in the past, maybe they don't need to go through the verification process because they're already quote unquote verified and they're authentic, but they may still have to pay, because otherwise, why should all these folks, who already have immense privilege, get for free what other folks are going to have to pay for? So, I get not having to jump through the verification hoops since they're already verified. New folks might have to, fair enough, but they should all have to pay, the monthly amount. Like, verified people shouldn't necessarily get to keep their verified status for no cost if everyone else has to pay for it, because otherwise we're back to the lords and peasants scenario. So it is
Right.
It is kind of like a populist take on it, like democratizing Twitter, which has got, like I said, this two-tier system for a long time. And if it would be redefining the blue check mark as you are who you say you are, because Elon, one of his big complaints from the beginning was too many bots. Let's clean up the bot problem. So if he's going to put his money where his mouth is, and then we'll see who wants to pay to make it, because where are they going to go? Like, Facebook's not that great for this sort of conversation. I mean, TikTok is a whole other kind of beast. Like Instagram too. It's like Twitter. I mean, that's the thing. Is like Twitter is small by comparison. It's about the 10th of the number of daily active users as say, or monthly active users as say Facebook. But because those users are so high profile, and many of whom are in the press, its reach is immense. I used to talk about this in my social media classes, right? Twitter gets billions of impressions per day because people are talking about it on the radio, on the news. They're embedding it on their websites, their blog posts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it is like that de facto town square that some people refer to it as, or the water cooler. So, if you want access to that platform, it makes perfect sense to have to play for it. It's like, okay, you know what? It's time for Twitter to grow up. It's time for Twitter to actually make money. Now, here's the rub, however. Some people have run the numbers and they figure if even only if say they get to 5% of people pay for Twitter Blue and get verified, I think that's only like $3 million a year for Twitter. And that's not going to solve their financial problems. So I think the aim is to get as many people as possible, get up to 20%, or get it so that most people are on there. Get it so that if you don't have a blue check mark, people are going to look a little askance at you, perhaps. And you've got to build, you really got to build that value. Maybe maybe there's going to be different pricing tiers for different levels of features. We talked about in the past here on Momentous Live how that, people say, those who are concerned about the hell stew that might arise from letting certain, types of people back on to exercise free speech, that, that may degrade the quality of the experience. Well, one of the aspects of the Twitter Blue that I think they're looking at building into is and some of the people involved in the new regime have talked about being able to control more tightly what you see on Twitter. So even if there are people shouting their mouths off, you don't have to see it. You can control who can reply to you, who can even tag you, and so on and so forth. Because one thing, again, I've always told to my classes too, is like, Twitter is what you make of it. The quality of your experience on any platform, but especially on Twitter, is directly correlated to the quality of the accounts you follow. So if you're following terrible accounts, you're going to have a bad time on Twitter. But the problem is that bad accounts, even if you don't follow them, can still tag you. And next thing you know, you're getting dragged into these other conversations and stuff. So if you have the ability to prevent being tagged like that, people might subtweet you, or they're talking about you behind your back, you don't even know about it. Well, that's the thing that happens. But at least you don't have to see. It's not being pushed in your face. So people who are concerned about their safety, or feeling like they're being targeted or whatever, or being harassed online, they just don't have to see that. And maybe that is the middle way to let people who are have free speech concerns, which there's something to be said for them, and the other people who have legitimate concerns about online harassment and safety. So if there's a way to make kind of like a bit of a barrier between that, then people can just create their own Twitters. Now, of course, the danger being that it just reinforces our existing echo chambers, and we only have to see stuff from people with whom we agree. So that's the other side of this. So Tasia, what would it take for you to pay a monthly amount so that you could better control your Twitter experience and enjoy some of the other features they talk about? Like, what's the right price for you, or what else would you like to see as part of the benefits?
My answer is $0. Like, I just refuse. Like, I don't know. I completely get it, and it's a business, and it has to make money. But to me, and like how I use Twitter,
right?
And I'm on it every day. Like, I love Twitter, but it's just like I just yell out into an echo, like, "Is anybody listening?" Like, nobody ever
screaming into the void.
A tweet of mine,
right?
Yeah. So like, to me, it's just like, no, I would never. Like, for me, it's like my money's better spent on video editing softwares, or like things that like directly impact my business, as opposed to me screaming into the void,
For sure.
So obviously, I'm not the target market for this. I will remain a freemium user, if you will,
Yeah, and
which
because
is
some
fine.
people, yeah, and because some of the people I've heard on various podcasts when I've talked about how Twitter is essential for them for marketing, for getting word out about their
Right.
podcasts or about their books or their TV appearances or and. So maybe
Yeah.
you need to have, in the hundreds of thousands of followers to, make it really worthwhile. It's like, you know what? It's $8 a month, no big deal. Anyhow, one of the other angles to this whole story that actually made me perk up a little bit, because I think this is the sort of thing that was taken from us uh, far too
Too
soon,
soon.
was Elon going on to um, actually, no, before we get to that, just two more quick things. Twitter discontinues ad-free articles for Blue subscribers. So we did touch on that a little bit. Now your price is going up, and maybe you'll get half as many ads. Whatever, we'll see how that actually pans out. And then, but something else that's happened in the last couple of days: Twitter has removed 1,500 accounts following a coordinated trolling
Mhm.
campaign. So again, Musk said they want to clean up the bots. And apparently, what a lot of these accounts were doing is basically propagating the idea that, well, now that Elon's in charge, it's a free speech, free for all. And no policies have actually changed at Twitter yet. Elon's actually gone on the record and said, hey, folks, we're just one thing at a time here. We're taking a look at everything, and then we'll start actually rolling out decisions. So they are, they still have a hand on the wheel here. Apparently, some of the moderators have lost access to their tools. Well, I'm not sure what's happening there. Maybe they're being re-engineered or putting other people in charge. But that being said, they are still doing these, identifying some of these, let's call them illegitimate accounts, and shutting down some of that stuff, which is good to see that, this isn't, they're not just letting, everything go at this point. But the thing that excites me, because again, this was taken too soon, is Elon the other day said, you just put out a tweet, kind of floating this idea, bring back Vine, yes or no? Just a little poll on Twitter a couple of days ago, had almost 5 million votes and almost 70% of people saying yes.
Hmm.
And for those not familiar with it, Vine was an adorable little social platform. It launched, I believe, in 2014, got bought by Twitter. I think it was not too long into its existence, and
Mhm.
it was for sharing little 6-second clips. And there's the creativity that we saw in there. We saw the
Mhm.
the launches of careers like a Canadian sort of comedy influencer, Brittle Star, who has since moved to Instagram and other TikTok and other platforms. But it was TikTok before TikTok. It was shorter, only
Exactly.
only 6 seconds, and then Instagram came out and did was it stories or whatever. I mean, you could do, like, I think Facebook and Instagram kind of killed Vine by introducing, short
Yeah.
video sharing quite quickly. And I guess, the people in charge of Twitter at the time just didn't see a way forward. They couldn't iterate quickly enough. They didn't have the resources to compete with Big Blue, being Facebook.
Which
and
is crazy.
and they shut it down,
Vine
and all
was
these
the
people.
OG.
It was, and I loved it. And I mean, people did music stuff, like comedy stuff. I just found neat things to, like, almost cinematograph type stuff, neat things that would kind of loop. Because
Yep.
it was a neat way for, like, little, different types of artistic expression. And to bring it back, like you mentioned earlier, like the whole, like, is this part of the I mean, it ties into the whole, let that sink in, like Elon Musk with the kitchen sink, when he showed up at Twitter's headquarters last week. Um, are they trying, if this is super app kind of territory, bring back Vine as part of x.com, or bring back Vine as itself? I think it might be kind of too late to compete, like, with, because TikTok. But if the legislators, like, start to really bring the hammer down on TikTok because of its Chinese
Mhm.
ownership and alleged access to customer data by the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. There's still concerns there. It wasn't just Trump who had those concerns. The current administration has been looking into it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's an angle there. It's interesting. There was some news from Facebook's recently quarterly updates that they have actually managed to stop the bleeding due to TikTok, and Facebook and Instagram Reels have actually done pretty well. They're seeing more and more engagement. And believe it or not, Facebook is still adding users worldwide. They've lost some in North America because we have shorter attention spans here, but around the world, they are still gaining users. So they have 3 billion monthly active users on Facebook and 2 billion daily. And I think that may include Instagram and WhatsApp. And there's a lot of crossover between the users too. So Facebook isn't going anywhere anytime soon. It's just people have concerns about how much money they're spending on the whole metaverse play, which is tens of billions of dollars. But TikTok, I don't think is invincible. But it's a question of, is there space for Vine? What would you like to see? Do you want to see Vine come back, Tasia?
I wouldn't mind it, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing. As we're seeing, like with YouTube pushing shorts, and trying to get into like that short form vertical content and stuff, like if people's attention spans are crazy low, it's also the fact of like these platforms purposely do not make it easy for you to cross share. So like to share a short, for example, over on like Twitter or whatever, you can, but like it doesn't hit the same. And like, as we know, like native video always works best on the platform you're on. And so like, I think it would be kind of cool. The other reason is, first of all, they started the whole short video trend. It was Vine before it was anybody else. And what's interesting now, what I'm seeing on Reels is 7-second audio clips are blowing up. They're like doing some of the best numbers right now. So a lot of people are just posting like random video footage of like a hike or like trees, fall leaves, and it's just set to 7 seconds of audio. And I'm like, boy, this seems eerily familiar to, like what we were doing eons ago with Vine. So I don't know. I mean, I don't hate it in terms of, and whether he keeps it to 6 seconds, like maybe you tap out at 15 or whatever, right? Like it's just short video, like whatever he's thinking. But I do think there is a place for it on Twitter, because like when you share like Instagram Reels over to Twitter, it's not a native video in Twitter. It doesn't appear as well on the timeline
by the algorithm. Yeah,
exactly. People don't want to click a link. They want to see the image and then they'll click it. So it's a great way for people who are like video creators to be able to, I can make one video and then I can post it natively on each platform and let it do its thing. You know what I mean? Like that's where it's going to maybe get the best bang for its buck. So this is something I would love. But Watch will be like, you need to have a subscription.
Real-time fact check. I said 2014. Vine was actually founded in 2012 and then sold to Twitter in 2016 for about $30 million US. And some of there's people arguing against trying to resurrect it, including some people that used to work at Vine, saying some of that code is up to 10 years old. And a lot of it is, at least over 6 years old. So, you might not want to try and resurrect it if you might just want to rebuild it from scratch. But I think you make a really good point, Tasia. And this is something that I was saying about Periscope for different reasons, which Twitter also bought before launch, which was, live streaming from your mobile phone. So basically
that was huge too.
Yeah. And they killed that as well. And I think part of it is that they would make these acquisitions and then let these things die on the vine, so to speak. And didn't know what to do with them. But Vine, the quick hits of content. Twitter is all about quick hits. It's the ultimate catnip for people with short attention spans, right? You're scrolling, bloop, because when Vine launched, they realized that when people are scrolling video, it's the short form content. Like video is hard to scroll, right? But if it's only 6 seconds, they tested 5, they tested 7, they tested 8. There was Ocho, which was another platform that was 8-second videos, which is a peer of Vine. But Vine's research told them that 6 seconds was the perfect amount of time. And you see a lot of the stuff that that trends very well on TikTok and on Facebook and Instagram Reels is that short stuff, because like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, ha ha ha. Next, so it's more scrollable video, which there's something to that now. And then similarly, Periscope, the other one, sort of brain fart there, is that Periscope was live video. And again, Twitter is like with the breaking news platform of the web, right? And they killed that. They couldn't figure out how to make that work because, again, Facebook started their engines, started their photocopiers, as Apple would say of IBM
It's
or
almost
Microsoft back in the day, and it stunted the growth of Periscope, and they ran away from the idea.
Yeah, but it's almost like these apps were ahead of their time, and Twitter was like, "Ooh, we should acquire these," but then didn't know how to execute on that, and Facebook went, "Oh, that is good," and then just did it, and made it work, and was able to sit with it for a bit until people got comfortable, because going live isn't going to be for everybody. Like, that's a very specific thing, but like I talked with one of my clients about it, where like so much of her business are her live streams, and she was massive on Periscope, and then when it died, she does it all on Facebook now.
Yep.
And so it's like, there's those user cases where it really, really works. So I feel like they were so ahead of their time, and Twitter was so close in being like they saw what it could be. Obviously, they acquired them, and then they went, "Oh, we don't have the capacity for this. Like, we can't figure this out. We're just going to stick to tweeting, like text on screen."
And then they stagnated for years and years.
Yeah.
And they finally, in the last year or so, they started doing a bit more. Now, I think part of the problem is Twitter maybe just didn't have the resources, because they've never had a great business. They've never really done that. It's not been great advertising wise, promoted tweets and whatnot. It's because it's so easy to scroll past them. They didn't have the sophisticated algorithms that Facebook did, at least not at the time. And so I think maybe they've been undercapitalized and just couldn't do justice to what Vine and Periscope required to actually flourish at the time. Facebook was just a money printing machine, and still is, kind of like Google is, because they both had advertising figured out. Facebook with its its contextual advertising, its promoted posts, and of course Google with its intention-based advertising with its search ads. And Twitter it's never been great for ads. So that's why Elon's like, the only way to make Twitter profitable is through subscription services or some of these other angles. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, but I'm a little nostalgic for Vine.
I know.
So speaking of things that die, some things die a little later than they should. Google Hangouts. How many different Google messaging platforms have there been over the years?
Oh my gosh, it's hard to keep track.
It's supposed to be Google Hangouts is supposed to be shutting down today. They've been booting people off since July, but there was Google Buzz, Google Wave, Google Plus. There was Google Plus Hangouts, then rebranded as Google Hangouts, Google Allo, Google Duo, Google Messages, which is now I think now the default app on Android phones.
Yes, the Messages app.
Yeah. Am I missing anything? It's just like, and a lot of this has been trying to figure out a way to compete with the iMessage platform that Apple has that works on iOS devices, so iPhones, iPads, on macOS devices, Macs, and you're on your watches as well. Eventually on your Apple AR glasses when that happens, and there's all the features that you get when you're talking with other people who are on Apple devices that are people who are on non-Apple devices with the green bubbles. They don't have those same features. So Google has
but I will say this. Google Hangouts, I do think, was another thing that was a little bit ahead of
oh, for sure.
Because if you recall that, like, I remember I would have Hangouts like with my cousin, because like we just thought it was so cool. Like, oh my god, like we just like get a group of people to like group chat, and like we can just do this like a video group chat, was how I was always using Hangouts. Once Meet came along.
Oh right, Google Meet.
Because
I forgot that one.
Right. And because we just have Google Chat in our Gmail and stuff like
Oh
that,
yeah.
it's like you don't need, so
Yeah, I forgot GChat
once
too. Good God.
yes, yes. So
Yeah.
once, which we've had GChat has been existing for not
Yeah.
forever, but basically forever in our, but I think it was kind of, the writing was on the wall. Like once they kind of, I feel like Hangouts, it was almost like a rebrand into Meet. Like Meet
Mhm.
became the overall like competitor of Zoom, and like, you're gonna have actual company professional meetings, and we can have like free accounts and paid account, all this kind of stuff. It's like you don't need Hangouts anymore.
Mhm.
Realistically, at least for me, like that's how I was using Hangouts back in the day. Again, before its time, we thought it was so fun to do group video chats. We were like, "Look at
But
us," and we would
but
put little
yeah.
things over our heads. We'd be like, "Look at us go! I'm a cat." You know?
So what did it have that Skype didn't? Because Skype was a thing for years and years before Google Hangouts. Was that it just didn't have the fun features that Hangouts did?
I feel like for us, it was just because we were all Gmail users. So
Gotcha.
since we already were in the Google ecosystem,
Right.
when we wanted to chat, and one of us was in Toronto, one of us was in Niagara, one of us was in Vancouver, it was just kind of like, let's have a hangout, let's hang out tonight.
Mhm.
And we would hang out, and it was just this native thing where like I didn't need the problem I still have with Skype to this day is it's just such a heavy user of like my battery and my memory. And it's like when I have this thing open on my phone, like I can barely keep my battery up. It's crazy. Like that app takes so much. Whereas stuff like Hangouts was like, we're hanging out anyway. I have my laptop with me all the time. It was just like a fun thing to do.
And it's a great name
So
too.
it is.
I forgot
So
about
it's
Google,
kind of
Google Talk
redundant
and
now.
Google Messenger and Google Voice.
Oh
by,
yeah, Google Voice. I had a Google Voice number for a long time. Yeah.
and by comparison, Apple had iMessage platform, which Messages is the app, and FaceTime,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. And they were connected together. And you like, but it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, there was iChat, but that was like almost 20 years ago. And yeah, it's wild to see Google struggle with this. And given how many Google user or Android users there are around the world, in North America, however, Apple has just surpassed the 50% threshold. So it might get harder for Google now because the trend is going in iPhone's direction in a lot of places. There are more people switching from Android to iPhone than there are switching from iPhone to Android. So it may get even more difficult for Google going forward to like try and come up with that master communications app. And it's sad if we're going to end up in these two siloed systems. I mean, there's still, and then defaulting to
Yeah.
SMS going between them because Apple is not supporting Google's version of RCS because even though it's supposedly an open standard, it's actually still kind of proprietary and it's not what the carriers want. And, there's the encryption issue and all that sort of stuff. So it's kind of complicated. And of course, all these corporations, Apple included, have their own interests and they don't want to give away, the
Exactly.
golden goose. So anyhow, so yeah, pour one out for Google Hangouts. We'll see what their strategy
What a
is
time.
going forward. Speaking of Apple, is we had a bad Poison Apple episode last week. This is another something that I saw that made me a little cringe a little bit. Now that Apple with their was it app tracking transparency, where people actually have to allow apps to track their user movements across other apps on the web, which seems perfectly fine, but has cost Facebook, for example, $10 billion a year in revenue. But that's what transparency is about, right? Some people, of course, at the same time, Apple is using its own dominance with its own platform to create supposedly privacy protecting advertising in, for example, its app store. But of course, with the bidding system there, a lot of the ads that started showing up on app store pages were for super trashy casino games. And
Right.
a lot of developers started going like, what is happening? I don't want this stuff anywhere near my app listings in the app stores and so on and so forth. And it caught fire on Twitter. I actually even retweeted it because one of the things that I was griping about is a couple of weeks ago, talking about we pay this premium, the Apple tax, for these beautiful, well-made devices that generally integrate pretty well between hardware, software, and services. I mean, nothing's perfect, and they're there's the occasional very visible and obvious stumbles and fumbles, but we pay that premium so we don't have to see crap like unnecessary ads. And here,
Yep.
not only is it ads, but it's trashy ads. Now, to their credit, Apple actually jumped on it very quickly within a day and had a very terse response saying that they, for the time being, have removed this classification of app ad. So we'll see, because this is all ties into all those junky ads with like the play to win stuff, and you got to buy your magic beans and all that stuff. Next thing you know, you got kids whose parents haven't set up the security properly on their accounts, and they end up with $1,000 Visa bills, and but all of those apps are so I don't know, they're just like leeches on the whole app economy. So unfortunately, Apple makes their 15 to 30% cut on a lot of these crappy in-app purchases and the like. So it's hard for them to, turn off that revenue. But I think for the user experience, things like those crappy apps with their in-app purchases and things like these crappy ads for these scammy casino apps and the like, pardon me, they need to get that crap out of there. Let's find some better ways to make money, Apple. So, did you notice any of these apps? I don't, honestly, I don't visit the App Store all that much myself nowadays.
I don't either.
Yeah. And
it's pretty rare, so I really haven't noticed, especially not these ones, but yeah,
so
not a good look.
there's some consternation about that, and there's a number of articles which we'll link to online, and a lot of this has to do with Apple's very visible and even stated shift toward services revenue, and they've grown their services revenue over the last number of years from like $6 billion to about $60 billion on annually, which is great because that's high margin revenue for the company, and it can help fund their other things like we've in the last few years we've had the watch, the AirPods, these supposed AR glasses, the someday whatever we're going to see with Apple in the car industry. All that stuff takes money, just like Facebook is plowing so much money into their metaverse pursuits too. Apple is very well funded to do these things, thanks to things like not only hardware sales, but these high margin services revenue from your things like selling advertising now, and the App Store revenue from the purchases and in-app purchases of apps, things like Apple TV Plus, iCloud storage, Apple Music, and that's all good stuff. And as we know, some of those prices are going up too, as supposedly the costs go up. But anyhow, don't screw this up, Apple. Like there was one of the thing I heard on a podcast recently. They were talking about how back in the day when Apple switched to Intel from the PowerPC platform for its Mac computers, unlike every other PC on there, Apple did not have the Intel Inside logo on the box or the stickers on the laptops. Apple and when asked about that, Steve Jobs said, "Why don't you have the stickers on your computers?" He said, "We like our stickers better." And they didn't put any stickers on at all. There was a logo that their own. It wasn't the actual Intel logo. It was just a square on the side of the Apple, the Mac boxes that said Intel, so people knew what platform it was to differentiate from the PowerPC platform, which was co-developed by IBM, Motorola, and Apple back in the early 90s. Apple made that big transition in the early to mid 2000s to Intel, but they did not junk up their packaging or their actual machines with all sorts of Intel branding. Nor have they ever junked up their machines with bloatware. When you buy a phone from a lot of carriers, Android phones, they would get so many apps from the carrier. You get Verizon apps, and like Samsung phones would have have Google apps and the Samsung apps. A lot of them do the same stuff. And not to mention, like when you buy a PC laptop, you've got like a free trial of a bunch of different software, and you got McAfee on there for antivirus, and maybe you've got a Quicken on there, and just so much junk. And Apple for decades now has just eschewed that kind of approach. So that's why it's especially heartbreaking to see them junk up the App Store. So not that I have an opinion on that.
Not at all.
Speaking of Apple,
money.
Yeah, money. But you got to keep those shareholders happy, right? So last week or the week before, we shared a bit of a snarky article from the Next Web on how to make sure you get malware on your app. and by doing all these things. And it's like, okay, so the lesson there is do the opposite of what they're saying in that article. Similarly, they have an article this week, how to update macOS as unsafely as possible. It's like, I get what you're doing here, guys, but why don't you just make a straightforward article? And they're talking
They're
about,
really going all in.
Yeah, now that macOS Ventura is out, many people will be updating. And so they're saying, fill that hard drive to the brim. Don't back up. Don't update your apps. Open all your apps all the time. Don't plug in your laptop during update. Oh, that's a big one too. So I know people who have bricked their machines, not Mac so much, but it can happen. If you lose power to your machine in the middle of a software update, like an operating system update, you're going to have a bad time. I have a friend who bricked his PlayStation Portable, his PSP, he didn't have it plugged in and it lost power during an update. And it was totally unusable after that. So anyway, here are some tips of things not to do.
So don't do that.
Have you updated your Mac to Ventura yet?
I did not.
Me neither.
I'm just waiting. Well, yeah, you're about 17 behind, but that's okay.
Exactly. Well, I finally updated to Monterey on the laptop, which is running this stream right now.
Whoa! Wow.
But my iMac downstairs is still on Catalina, I think. So I'd like to get everything to Ventura eventually. Gotta catch up. Just another quick hit here. We started late, so of course we're going a little late, but let's see if we can button this up pretty quickly. We have talked in the past about how many streaming services we all here at Momentous tend to accumulate over time. Tasia, which ones are you currently subscribing to at the moment?
So, my Disney Plus will run out mid-November because I finally canceled that. Which then, of course, they announce a David Blaine special is coming on in like December, and I'm like, come on!
Get your renew for renew for a year before they jack the price. You got to get in there before they jack the price. At least get another year in.
No, I'm gonna tell Brett to do it. I'll be like, "This is on you now."
But that's how they get you, right? Oh, it's always something good in the future. So you've got Disney Plus.
Have like Disney Plus, Netflix, obviously Amazon Prime, but that's HBO Max. But that we leech off of his parents. So can I really count that?
The authorities are on their way.
Right, I know. What else do we have?
Do you have Hulu?
No, and I want Hulu. So that's why I'm canceling Disney Plus, because I'm like, listen, their bundle to do like Hulu and Disney Plus together is way too much money. I cannot justify it. Like, it's asinine. It's complete bull, in my humble opinion. So I just want to get Hulu because there's like a million shows on Hulu I want to watch. We don't have it yet. So I was like, I'm canceling Disney Plus. I'm going to get Hulu instead.
And I take it you don't have Paramount. So it's just a swap. Plus. Yeah.
No. And I tried, oh God, I don't remember if it was Paramount Plus or one I did a free trial of just to like watch a show. And then there was nothing else on the streamer. And I was like, goodbye.
Yeah, free trials are your friend.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, and Apple TV Plus. How about that?
Nope.
Oh, it's tough. I mean, it's not as much content, but the stuff, it's generally pretty darn good. And so I've got that as part of Apple One bundle, because with the 2 terabytes of iCloud storage and Apple Music and all that, again, that's how they get you. So
I got into a show from Apple TV on a plane, randomly enough. They had the morning show on there.
Morning show is great. Severance is great. Ted Lasso is great. Oh, yeah. There's and the more you dig, the more, like, that's the thing. It's like they're quality over quantity. They're kind of taking the old school HBO approach there, as we've discussed before. Anyhow, this is an article from CNET that talks about the strategy that we've discussed about, like, canceling or pausing certain services for a while bringing on other ones. And in this article, it talks about, for what your strategy should be for November. So it's interesting. We're actually starting to see guidance from online, journalists. I suppose that's journalism nowadays, telling people what streaming services to keep or to ditch in a given month. But apparently, Netflix has got some good stuff this month, at least in the US. But they're saying for November, keep Netflix, cancel Hulu, keep HBO Max, keep Disney Plus, cancel Apple TV Plus, cancel Paramount Plus, keep Prime Video, keep Peacock with the NBC one, and keep Stars. Cancel. Sorry, I even screwed myself up. Keep Prime, cancel Peacock, cancel Stars. Yeah, we've got
it's
Prime.
A lot.
We've got Prime, Apple TV Plus, Disney Plus, HBO Max is on Crave, so we have Crave here in Canada, and we have Netflix, and I think that's it.
HBO Max is so good.
Yeah, well, that's a hard one to let go. Again, good quality stuff. House of the Dragon, amazing. Anyhow, so there's your little tips, especially if you're in the States. Your mileage may vary depending what country you are in. So I look forward to your reporting back and seeing if you actually get sucked into Disney Plus for another month or another month or two for David Blaine, or another year. Again, the price hike's
David
coming,
Blaine.
so might as well lock in. I might lock in early because they just keep, for the nerds like me, Gray and Will, they get us with the Marvel stuff, the Star Wars stuff, and so on. Watched a couple of Marvel shows last night, actually, that when one or more of them return, we'll talk about. So I have a somewhat more interested audience for that. I won't bore you with that stuff tonight, though.
Yeah.
However, I will bore you with the sale of E.T., the beloved alien who nearly murdered a little boy. I don't remember that part of the movie per se, but
Me neither.
I know this is before. Have you ever seen E.T., Tasia? It came out, what?
Oh, yeah.
3 years before you were born?
I have seen E.T., yep.
So they are...
Yeah, it was 82, right? Yeah.
Julien's Auctions and TCM present Icons and Idols Hollywood Auction. So the estimate for the animatronic ET is between $2 and $3 million.
Wow.
You can have, here's some nightmare fuel for you, for those who loved ET growing up. This is what ET's skeleton and muscular system looks like.
Oh boy.
But how cool would that be to have, right? In the gendered man cave, or lady cave, as you prefer, right? Like it's not quite as cute and cuddly as ET was himself. But anyway, if you got maybe Elon could buy it. Oh, all his capital's tied up in Twitter. Too bad.
At Christmas time,
right?
I mean, at Halloween time, not Christmas. I guess I could put a little hat on it for Christmas. But, yeah.
But that's it for that sort of news. How about we get to our picks of the week and put a fork in this? You got something that is articulated in its own ways, not quite as sophisticated as mechanical ET, but what do you got for us this week?
Well, I love Joby GorillaPods. I had one forever, for years and years and years, and it finally broke. So for my birthday, I had Brett get me a new Joby GorillaPod. This is like the grip tight. I think this one's the Stand Pro. Mm-hmm. And the reason I really, really wanted it is because it came with the mobile clip, but also on top of it, it's got like a shoe mic mount. So like I can mount my microphone. It's just so you could mount a light, which is what I'm sure most people are mounting on there. Not nerds like me mounting microphones. But anyway, the great thing about the GorillaPods are these legs completely bend and transform. So you can bend it around a rock, a tree branch, a light post, like anything you need to like stick a tripod on, but is not like a flat traditional surface for a 3-legged tripod. You just bend the legs, wrap it around. It's pretty sweet. So I'm very excited. And this one is definitely more sturdy than the OG model I had all those years ago. So I'm really happy with it.
The GorillaPod, available at Joby, JOBY.com. Yeah, Joby.com.
Yep. And also Amazon.
I have never gotten myself a Joby, but it's another thing for me to buy and maybe not use. Just stick it in the cover. Got a cover right here full of gear.
I love the Joby. They're so good. You could travel with them. Yeah, they're really good.
My pick of the week is a little different than the usual. It's not a TV show or a movie this week, and it's not a chainsaw, but it's a new flavor of potato chip that Stephanie and I have never tried before. We were down in the States at the let's call it Momentous HQ2, our undisclosed location that we live streamed from a couple of weeks ago, actually, but went back this past weekend. And when we go to the States, we always make a stop at Trader Joe's because we don't have that here in Canada. And we discovered a new type of ridge cut potato chips, but a special flavor seasoned with horseradish and chives. And Stephanie's like,
are they like spicy hot, like the horseradish, or does the chive cut it?
So Stephanie really likes horseradish. She's like, we got to get that. And I'm like, I'm on board. Like, I never really liked horseradish, back in the day, but as
Right.
I've matured and my taste buds have dulled over time. I've started to appreciate horseradish, especially with a little, with some roast beef or whatnot. But I swear, these are like the kind of like the closest thing I could compare them to is sour cream and onion, but with a bit more kick.
Okay.
On Trader Joe's reviews.com, 25 customer reviews have given an average of 5 stars. So apparently this flavor comes and goes. Earliest reviews here looks like 2018. It's the first time I've ever seen it. So maybe a seasonal flavor. Maybe it's more for the fall. And we don't usually go in the fall and winter time, but I'm ever glad that we saw it. And it's not, unlike most other fall stuff, it's not pumpkin spice flavored.
Sometimes they will bring things that are seasonal, like all year round, if people like it enough.
Mm-hmm. There's another thing I saw, another food thing I saw this past weekend. I'll save it for next episode though. It's another seasonal food delight.
Oh yeah. Well, we had one from was yours another Trader Joe's pick or no?
No, something else.
Oh, there's something at Trader Joe's I love that is seasonal, and I can't remember what season because I literally have not been to TJ's since. It's so funny, TJ, and I call Trader Joe's TJ's. I know, TJ. But like I haven't been there since like literally pre-pandemic, so I can't remember what season, but it's called popcorn in a pickle.
What?
And it sounds terrible, like pickled flavored popcorn. It sounds gnarly.
No,
why would you ever?
I'll try that.
So good. It's so good. Popcorn in a pickle. It's a big green bag, but it's only seasonal at Trader Joe's. I wonder if I can find out what season. I'll text you later. But
yeah. Well, it could be a future pick of the week. I just thought of a popcorn related future pick of the week too. Maybe as we get into winter, we start running out of other ideas, or our backlog of TV shows and movies is just too great. We're going to get into the food territory. Maybe it'll have to be a spin-off show, Momentous Foods.
Right?
So many spin-offs.
I think they bring it a little bit before summer. That's what it's saying online. So I think in the springtime, we'll start to see it. I'll have to grab you some. It's freaking good.
Okay. We're almost there. You have a little project this week. Again, I don't know how you do it. YouTube machine.
I'm not doing it this week. That's how I do it. I'm taking a break this week.
Oh, are you?
I had it up to the year. Yeah,
wow.
I'm off this week.
Good for you. So what was your video from last Thursday?
How to use Gmail labels. So it's like a total Gmail labels tutorial for beginners.
Mm-hmm.
So what a label is, how to create a label, how to edit and delete labels, how to add a label to an email, how to add multiple labels to emails. Everything you need to know about labels.
And do you use labels for your email?
I do. And I color code them because of course I do. I'm very visual. My GCal is all color blocked, different tasks and clients are different colors. And that way I know like in a visual look, like what's going on. And it makes the stress of the week a lot prettier looking when you're like, oh, colors.
Fantastic. I got to admit, I'm still a folders guy, and I know that labels, that was one of the innovations of Gmail back in the day, because you could have multiple labels and you're not stuck into a single folder, old school paradigm. But you know what? I'm old school. So very cool.
Basically like a folder. It is not a folder, but it's similar.
It's just enough to break email standards and make a Google only thing to don't even get me started on. Anyhow, awesome. So where can people find out more about your work, Tasia?
You can go to TasiaCustodi.com or youtube.com/TasiaCustodi.
Lovely. And you can find out more about us at Momentous at momentous.tv/links. We did it.
Good job. TNT.
We only started
Dynamite.
TNT, that's right. We only started 10 minutes late, but we only went 10 minutes long. So I'm hungry. And I'm a bit warmer now, at least. That's what happens when you close the door in the studio here. Anyhow.
Oh, Lord. We did Tasia, it, guys.
I hope you and anyone else who still might be out there, I hope your week is truly momentous.
Momentous.